Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My history is not as long as yours, but my history backdates even the time of the broadband in Fraco. My focus for this afternoon on the paper, and maybe let me start by thanking you, Minister, for your intervention with regard to the ICASA auction. From where I come from, when everybody else talks also about entrepreneur and everything, I also come from the developmental side of things, Minister, and that talks a lot to a cost. When you spoke earlier, you mentioned the issue about stop competing on the infrastructure. If you look at the history that Mama Irene indicated, that talks about the broadband, the fiber, rightfully say the metro is populated, the metros are populated with broadband infrastructure, but you go to township economies. We, at the moment, as Ekurhuleni and all the other metros, we do have a lot of townships that we say we're doing township economies. So our plea and our input into the white paper is that how are we expected to do township economies if one critical area of economic development is access to the internet and access to fiber? Our biggest challenge at the moment is that if we start considering fiber like transport, if we say in the multiply effect of fiber and telecommunication will actually make our cities and our township works, and we do develop that economy from a township. I do have a young entrepreneur that is a graphic designer based in Soshanguve, and he always says to me, my business is Constitutional Hill, my business is Johannesburg housing, but I am not moving from Soshanguve. I am going to stay here, but access is my problem. And in this discussion, what is the problem with access? Is it the cost of the infrastructure? Remember, if the likes of dark fiber went around the cities and implemented the fiber, and you do have people that still want to revitalize our township, they want the vibrancy, they don't want to move from those areas, how do we as government affect and make sure that they remain vibrant? You indicated that you're from rural areas, Minister, but if we now start saying, but now technology has evolved, and as technology has evolved, we actually then have to come to a point that, can't we extend this? Can't we open it to other bands? And if we do open it to other bands on the unlicensed spectrum, then as government, let's deal a model. Let's come up with a model, which is one of the proposal we'll put forward as to saying the cost element for them. Obviously, you will have the likes of, I tried to mention a company, but let me skip the company, the private sector, the operators that will go out and put free Wi-Fi, but we actually saying, the cities have managed to do it, but we have not managed to do it extensively in the township. So we will be putting together a funding model, a proposal costing as to saying, if we do this, if we can do IRPTN and the bus Ria Vaya, this is our Ria Vaya infrastructure that we should be able to utilize for our township development. So that is one of the proposals that we're putting in. Look, radios in the township and radio in the varsity, streaming. Can't we now move into that space for the young people to be in the streaming? And when we do streaming, what is it required from us as policy makers and people that have an input in the white paper that says, when we do this local, the unlicensed spectrum will go a long way in making sure that we do talk about, we do also increase the streaming. Let the streaming not end here in Morningside. I know Cliff Central and Tibos are not here, but let it be extended beyond Sandton, but goes beyond our metros, but outside our metro. Our request and the input is that let's put enough for developmental agenda. Black industrialists that we are talking about, let us have enough capacity on the spectrum that says that this is purely for developmental agenda. And in that way, let us not just go with a preferential procurement framework when it comes to this area. The radical change that we would like to see when we go there is not a 30% of an empowered company, but is 100% of that young guy that is just saying, I am not moving my office, I'm making enough money here, but I am not moving my office from Soshanguve. The whole thing about globalization and access is that we must be closer to each other, but a guy in Soshanguve is very far from the outlined in Constitutional Hill, and that doesn't make sense if we're talking about revitalizing a township economy. So that is our plea, that as we're looking at it, what kind of a cost we're talking about, because access is one thing. We can say this is ring fence for black people, but at what cost will the black people be able to afford to be able to participate in those areas? And when we say we are ring fencing, we also need to ring fence the funding alone. So our partners with ITC, partners with DBSA, they should be coming on board to make sure that when we do this service competition, it is fair. Remember, fair as the Constitution allows us a discriminatory way of fairness in a discriminatory way. So we will discriminate, and this is one area, Minister, that we should be able to boldly say we are discriminating fairly. And when we do that, we say when you are in township, these are the requirements. When you are in rural areas, these are the requirements, because the barriers to entry are still high, and that will end thing. Thank you.